Greetings, fellow American Horror Story fanatics. This is the Elvis Man coming at you for a recap of episode 3 of My Roanoke Nightmare. We definitely left off with some pretty dramatic stuff. We saw poor Flora go MIA after what appeared to be some kind of an abduction by ghosts, because all of a sudden her sweater was like 50, 60 feet up in the air on top of this tree. And of course, Mom's down looking below, horrified, and that's where we ended up leaving off last time. So luckily, we're hoping that we're going to probably pick up right where we left off, because things are definitely starting to increase and get a little bit more strange. But leave it to Ryan Murphy. He kind of baits us in and really gets us going and sets us up for a really exciting thrill ride throughout the season. So we start off with Lee talking about the craziness that's going on. And of course, you know, her being a cop, she knows that when children go missing, there's a certain time frame, a certain window that they're left to work with until the probability of them being found alive or being found at all are literally slim to none at all. So they did manage to bring down the sweater from way up there. How the hell they managed to do that? Because anybody who was watching the scene noticed that ladder that was going up the tree, I think it maybe went up like maybe a third of the way. There was still like a good 20, 30 feet worth of reach. And yet they still managed to get this yellow sweater down. But they pull it down, and of course, Lee smells it, and it totally smells like Flora. She's like, yes, it's definitely hers. So the cops are out there once again. This seems to be like the usual hangout, like every shift change lately. But the cops come back, and yet again, they're scratching their heads, wondering what the hell could have possibly happened out here, because there's no way anybody just simply just jumped up that tree that fast, that high, and then just scurried right back down again just to go missing. It is mind-boggling. But of course, there is acres upon acres of woods that she could have vanished into. So now they're out forming a search. They grab this big group of people, thankfully, who are willing to help, handing out flyers, pictures of Flora, trying to find her, seeing what's going on, and trying to basically section out the woods in like this grid map. But I mean, if you look at that scene and you see this grid map, I mean, these squares may be, in comparison to a map, as a map goes, they're freaking huge. And which means the area that they're covering is even more huge. But what do I know about wilderness? That's where my lovely woman is much more handy than I am. I'm more of a tech geek. But so here we go. We're heading through the woods. We're looking for Flora. Lee's desperately trying to find her daughter. And of course, we're going to see something creepy because we're all separated in the woods. We know something's going to happen. Lee calls out for Matt. Matt comes running. And of course, Shelby, who is within earshot too, they come running and they find this really, really, really weird looking ritualistic kind of display of pig parts and what appears to be a severed doll. I can't be sure, but I think the doll might have actually been Flora's. I don't know. I can't remember. But I think that was her doll that got dismembered and then left there with the pig parts, which is why her mom was freaking out as bad as she did. I'm not quite sure what the deal is with all the pig parts yet. I'm still trying to figure out the significance of all these pig references. They're going and they're diving deeper into the woods after they find this crazy little. Me personally, I thought it looked like a pentagram, an upside down pentagram, just the way it was displayed. And the more they go in, they come across, which I think is the rednecks, the hillbilly guys that they were talking about, the Polk family, I think is what they call them. I'm pretty sure that's their house they come across, but more dismembered pig parts and doll parts forming strange circle things. But they go inside. The place reeks to high heaven, or maybe it's the bottom hell. Flies everywhere, maggots. The stench is horrible. It's basically like a house where people like left rancid meat out to get even more rancid. Flies everywhere. They opened up the fridge daringly. I cannot imagine why anybody would think to open up the fridge in that place. And of course, it's got like a cow's head and a pig's head and more maggots. Yay. It's just rice, Michael. So they're scurrying outside, looking around, trying to find Flora everywhere. Lee's like, she's not here. They hear something. So they go out and they head out to the barn. And there, to everyone's horror, they find these two, I want to say teenage boys. They're not quite there yet, but they're not young either. They're basically all dirty and disheveled, like they hadn't bathed in months. They're just covered in dirt. They can barely talk. They got the yokel jaw thing going on, like they're inbred or something. And they are just going to town on this big mother sow pig, which I don't know. I didn't see her moving. She might have been dead, but they're still sucking the milk out of this mother pig, just going to town. They heard them yelling.
She kind of looked like she was, I don't know, she wasn't moving, but she looked like maybe they had been nursing on her for a long time. Just the way, I don't know, by the way she looked, but be gross.
It was pretty gross. The kids only would utter one thing. It was like, or something like that, because they were yelling out for Flora. But they end up calling the cops. They find these kids. They take them in, get them medically treated, I would think. Probably for rabies, too. And they're just looking at them through this one-way mirror. Maybe it is two-way. I don't know. But they're just trying to make any sense out of it because they can't speak a word of English. They're completely malnourished. They can barely put together two words. But
well, when they came in there and they were looking for Flora, they were actually mocking them. They were trying to mimic their words, so they were yelling for Flora, which is really weird because they probably haven't heard a lot of spoken English. They can't speak at all. And there's this lady, she's trying to interrogate them, trying to pretty much, use chocolate, use, any kind of tactics she can to get them to speak. And they just yell at her. You can't speak to them. They're completely wild. So she doesn't really get anywhere with the kids.
It's kind of like that movie Nell with Jodie Foster back in the day. That chick who got left out in the woods with her sister, and they just created their own language. So it was almost impossible to communicate with her. She was that wild. It was a weird movie. Back to the woods yet again. Matt's out looking around. They broke out the flashlights. They're daring enough to go out and start looking at night again. We start hearing Lee talking about how little faith she's having left at this point. I mean, I think they mentioned it was been 72 hours. And she was saying that it was really important to try and find her within 36 because the chances after that are very slim. It was right about 3 days worth of time, and they were just running on steam. But she's starting to fall apart because she's starting to realize that they might actually be looking for a body at this point. And seeing all those dismembered pigs and doll parts, that certainly would have been my vibe. I'd been like, oh my God, she's been kidnapped and dismembered by deliverance wannabes. But the more they keep searching, the more we know. It's dark now, and if they get separated, something's going to happen. Something supernatural is going to happen. And, of course, they can't find anything, any hints of Flora. And strangely enough, you would think that it would be all of a sudden, boom, ghost attack or something. But no, we find them back in the house. They're eating in Mason. The father's there. And they're basically giving up. And Mason's just pissed. He's looking for somebody to blame. And, of course, it goes straight at Lee because Lee had made off with her right from school to begin with. Before she disappeared, Lee had kidnapped her, remember? But Mason's bugging out. He basically thinks that Lee's the one to blame for all this. He thinks that she is the one who's just setting this whole thing up, and they're just going to run off to some country where he'll never find her again. She'd rather actually live with her daughter on the run than ever share her with the husband who doesn't want her to see her anymore. That's his mentality, his mindset. But of course, we know that's not what happened at all. There was this mention of that weird Priscilla person. And then after that, she was doing her homework and then gone.
Then they get to this physical altercation, and Mason, he gets very angry at her at the thought of her abducting their daughter, hiding her. So he actually pushes Lee to the ground out of anger and storms out of the house. And that scene's over. So the next thing you see is, they're in bed, Shelby and Matt, they're laying there, and they get a call. Very strange. You're thinking maybe it's the cops. Maybe we found another piece of clothing. Maybe we found some more of the doll. They don't really touch on that, but they say, well, this was the beginning of something. We really didn't know what was going to happen. It was going to be a very long night, something to that effect. So they wake up Lee. They say, something has happened. Let's go, pretty much. And, of course, she's like, is it Flora? Is it Flora? It cuts to her talking about her daughter and thinking, hey, we're probably going to recognize the body. And she was also speaking about it on the ride to the scene where the police are. She's thinking, well, I thought the anticipation of not knowing is the worst thing ever. No, this was the worst thing ever. And then it just cuts to this crazy shot.
It kind of reminded me of the Michelangelo man. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about. The guy with the 2 arms and the 2 legs. But the way he was, they hand her a ring, and that's when we know that crispy critter hanging there on the tree, looking like a pentacle, all burnt up.
So they pretty much walk upon in the woods. There's cop cars everywhere, and there's a body, big crispy body, too large to be a child's. So they know it's not the child's. Like, who is this? You have no idea. And then, it's horrible. It's like strung up, arms up in the air. Was it against a pinnacle? The star?
It really did. It definitely looked like it was the whole sacrifice pinnacle look. That's what I got out of it. And plus there was a circular pattern behind him. And plus we've been seeing the pigs and the dolls in that same kind of form.
Mm-hmm. They're like hanging them up, stringing them up the same way.
Well, I don't think we'll be seeing any more of Mason anytime soon.
So she's lost her child and her ex-husband. Pretty devastating.
She's falling apart. Loss seems to be this woman's big thing. But Matt and Shelby, they remember that they had that surveillance system that Matt originally set up. And they went back and they checked it out. And that's when they realized that Lee had actually left right after Mason did. And then by going through the tape a little bit longer, they noticed that it's been 4 hours time that lapsed between the time that she left and came back, which to a cop and somebody who knows her stuff, I mean, Shelby starts thinking maybe Lee actually was the one that tied Mason up and set him ablaze.
She was afraid he was going to go to the cops and say, hey, she took her daughter. I think she took her daughter. So she comes into this room where they're actually speaking about it, and she says, how dare you? Why would I abduct? You know me better than that. I would not abduct my own child. And while they're arguing, we actually meet a new character. What was his name from Coven?
It's Cricket in this one, but I can't remember exactly who he was in Coven. He was one of the Witches' Council.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He was one of the ones that ended up getting the melon ball, taking the eye out there. He was one of them. But he comes in pretty astute looking. I don't know about that hair, though. That hair, screams weird albino from the late 70s kind of thing. I don't know. That's the kind of vibe I get out of that hairdo.
Short Andy Warhol?
That's what I think people were actually comparing him to.
Oh, really?
He's fairly well-dressed and well-spoken. He comes in just strutting into the place and carrying this unusually strange-looking cane of a frog on a ball. Odd indeed. I don't know. But hey, I'm not one to tell a man who obviously is maybe riding that rainbow ride. I'm not one to question his fashion. But anyways, he comes in, he introduces himself, he's telling everybody what exactly he does, and we learned that Cricket is a means of a psychic. Like he can kind of feel the energies, that line between the dead and the living. Kind of like Sarah Paulson's character from season 1 in Murder House.
Except she was a medium, so she could speak with the dead, but still some kind of super brain power that allows him. It brings another supernatural element into the show, and it turns out that he has actually worked with the FBI. They did some research on him, and he's the real deal. Like, he has found several missing children. So he's going throughout the house, trying to feel the energy. He taps his cane. It's cute. He's got his little gimmick. It does almost bring a very gimmicky vibe to whatever he is trying to do.
It's like he was scanning. Every time he tapped it, it seemed like he would progress further, but he would look everywhere as he did it. But it got really interesting, and they really started paying attention, because this is where things got a little strange, where they started to possibly maybe believe him. He's at the top of the staircase. This is back when Mason and Lee were looking for Flora when she was hiding in the house, because they said that she likes to hide. She's really good at it, and that was her thing. And when they were looking for her before, that's when they came across her at the top of these stairs, hanging out in this little, like, I think you called it a Harry Potter bedroom.
It's the cupboard under the stairs.
Yeah, exactly. And he opens it up, and boom, there we see the mystery bonnet again, supposedly belonging to Priscilla, this other small female child thing. I don't know. We're leaning with Ghost on this one. We're pretty sure with Ghost.
Lee's daughter called it her friend. So Lee thought maybe it was just, we touched on that previous episodes, that maybe she was trying to deal with the divorce and just needed company. So she made up a friend named her Priscilla. That's what Lee thought it was. But now he's talking about, he says Priscilla, and Shelby's who's Priscilla, and Lee is like, really? Did you say Priscilla? What do you mean Priscilla? And he just kind of elaborates on how old she was. What year did he say that she died? Didn't he know a little bit about the history?
It was like 1570, I think, which totally blew my mind, because I thought we were in like the 1700s dealing with the Roanoke group there. But I'm not a king of timelines when it comes to this stuff.
But she had been dead for like 400 years, so she'd been a ghost or a spirit or whatever for centuries.
And ghosts, if true to the lore, tend to really stick around one area. They're not like free roaming spirits. They tend to stay with a particular area. That's where they come up with the word haunt. They usually have something
holding them to a certain location, usually something that belonged to them, something of importance. So maybe it's her bonnet. Maybe they just need to throw her bonnet outside of the house and she'll go away.
I doubt that. But getting on to something a little more serious now, we see them preparing almost like a spirit ritual. Cricket has put them in the circle in like witch fashion, and he starts praying to the north, south, east, and west, burning the sage, offering a small, amount of blood into the candle. He wants to communicate with the other side. He's trying to find a way to communicate with Priscilla so that they can find Flora. That's basically what he's there to do. But that's when he starts feeling the violent spirit. And we've come to realize who that is at this point. It's Kathy Bates. But she makes her presence known to Cricket because he's the one that can actually sense her and in a way see her. So,
right, the others don't see her at all. You hear her voice first, and you're like, I know that voice.
He warns them even. He's like, this spirit is strong and malevolent. I think that's the right word.
And they hold hands. They close the circle for protection.
Exactly. And that's when she actually does come out of the shadows. And Cricket is terrified. I think he pulls up something like a tarot card almost or something.
It's not tarot. It's a card of protection. I don't know what deck. It's not Saint something. I should have written that down, but he chants it at her. I don't think it has an effect on her. I don't think she cares because she proceeds. She has this cleaver, this giant meat cleaver, the same cleaver that we saw stuck in the entrance door.
That's right.
Yes, that's right. She throws it, and no one else can see her, but the pillar candle that they have in the middle of the table, in the middle of the circle, splits it right in half, and everybody just loses their shit. It's
Clean
scary
in
when you
half.
see a giant candle split right before you.
Hmm. And that's when they say that this is where it gets super creepy to them, because they didn't see any special effects. They didn't see any wires. They didn't see anything that could have remotely or possibly have caused that candle to get split clean in half like that. No way. But that's when Cricket starts telling him who this person is. She's known as the Butcher. That's what she calls herself, at least at this point. And I'm pretty sure with a name like that, we can pretty much assume that she is the one that's probably behind all these pig massacres. But she starts actually talking. Do we actually hear her name yet? I don't think have we heard her name yet. It's
I
something.
don't think she introduces herself yet.
I don't think they actually did come up with it yet. But I think that she's telling them that there's no way she's ever going to be leaving this property. This is her territory.
It's her home. Belongs to her. And she seems very stubborn and very mean. So mean that she smashes every window in the upstairs little alcove that they're doing this ritual in to talk to her, and no one can see her. And Matt, Shelby's husband, is still very skeptical about Cricket. He thinks maybe there's someone outside with BB guns shooting out the windows. He just doesn't. I mean, why would you just suddenly believe in the supernatural after all this time? Even though they've both seen some weird things, he's still very skeptical. So they're arguing at this point about what it was.
Those weren't exactly tiny windows, and a BB is not going to do that kind of damage. I'm thinking like maybe a couple of slingshots or something, but I mean, you can't take down a big window like that simultaneously like that. I mean, you would have had to have like a firing squad of people holding BB guns out there, all aiming at a different little spot. And I'm talking like 4, 5, 10 people per window.
I think it was just Matt trying to make sense of why did all the windows break out. Exactly. And then Cricket comes up with he doesn't come up with the idea, but he thinks he's got him pretty convinced at this point. And, I think he wants to help, but he has a price. He doesn't do it for free. $25,000. He takes Visa, check, MasterCard. That was funny. And, of course, Matt gets very angry at this and threatens him. And this is where he says, this is all a hoax. I don't believe you. And how dare you come in here and prey on our emotions and scare us and give us false hope. And he's trying to give his credentials and say, I'm really trying to help you, but I put my life on the line, my soul. I mean, it's very stressful. He's trying to make a case.
He's basically putting himself in harm's way and into the darkness. I mean, he's next to these crazy spirits that are wielding hatchets and stealing children. I mean, this is some scary shit. I mean, I think, honestly, looking on it, yeah, it's kind of an asshole-ish way to bring about your case, but I think what he was really trying to do was show them that he wasn't just some grifter piece of crap that was trying to win one over on a grieving mother. But they obviously don't exactly want to pay him $25,000 either. So Lee, of course, very tired, very stressed, and at her wit's end, she pulls out her sidearm. Mama's packing. Always, except for that one time. Matt ends up calming her down a little bit. Matt says, tell her, just put the gun down. You don't need to do this. But it does not spare Cricket his fury. He still wants him gone. He doesn't exactly threaten him with the gun, but now that he has it, he's like, get the hell out of my house. Mm-hmm. And Cricket says, you know what? I'm going to be back, and it's going to be you guys that are inviting me. You'll see. I personally knew he was going to be back. We're not going to get a cameo from one of the previous seasons that briefly. You got to remember also, you got to think like a director and a casting artist. They're not going to bring certain people in just to kill them off that fast. Like even Mason. I mean, we've seen him in other movies, but I didn't really think he was going to last very long, but still, a cameo, you got to at least give him a couple of episodes. You're not going to kill him off that fast.
He's their link to the spirit world at this point. They don't have another link. They may not have even realized that the supernatural had anything to do with it. So, of course, they're not going to let that go. And Lee is so desperate. Now she has another lead that's not the police, because she doesn't trust them, because she thinks they are actually probably in bed, hypothetically, not literally, with the Polks, the yokel redneck family. So she doesn't trust the police at all. So she's very desperate. And before Cricket leaves, you see him whisper in Lee's ear. We don't know what he said at this point, and they cut back to the production of the reality show, and they ask her about it. And that's when it cuts back again. She gets upset. It cuts back again to Cricket, and it says, what did he say about Emily? What was the exact quote?
Emily is wondering why you stopped looking for her. And that's when we realized that Lee actually had another daughter.
You'd never heard of Emily at this point. And that's why she got upset, because she didn't know why the producers of the reality show knew about Emily. She physically gets so emotional and so upset. She screams at the camera guy. She says, "Hey, stop. And this is our first look, our first interaction at something a little bit behind the scenes, because up until this point, you never see or hear anything from the production crew. And they're actually talking to her. So this is a new element to this season."
There's also another fan theory going on out there. I have to go back and listen to it again. I've only been lucky enough to really go through this once a good time over so far. But there's theories out there that the person talking when that was going on during that scene was Evan Peters, but I doubt it. I don't think so. But I'm going to have to call bullshit on this one and go back and check it out again for myself.
Also, the other guy from Hotel, I can't remember his name. He was Will. He was
Matt Bomer, I think was his name.
No.
Not Wes Bentley, although we did see him this time.
I'll find it in a sec.
Yeah, you have to look that one up for us. But here we are again. We're back, and we're seeing some flashbacks to the actual Roanoke days now. We're starting to see some more diving in on the background of this Kathy Bates person. And she's apparently taken over for the colony. Like, if you actually look up the old Roanoke story, apparently I think his name was Jack or John White, who was her husband. Mm-hmm. She stayed behind to look over the colony, but he went back to England to try and bring back more provisions and food because they were starving to death. I mean, you actually see Kathy on the island. She's actually dishing out this weird-looking soup that almost looks like it's got like blades of grass in it or something. That's what they're eating.
That's all they had. They were starving. That's why they wanted to go inland, and she said, "No, we're staying here on the island." So they pretty much revolted against her.
That's what we're getting the vibe about. Hunger makes people do a lot of crazy things. Anybody who's ever seen the movie Alive knows that.
Oh, God, that movie was awful.
Yeah, the things you'll do to survive. But 50 days in the Alps at negative 30 degrees and avalanches and yada, yada. But so back to the story here. We know that it's going to happen, and there we see Lee right there with Cricket. She's breaking out the check, and of course we know she's going to pay. She's going to do anything she can to try and get her daughter back, and she's starting to believe that he's the real deal. And of course we know, seeing through his eyes, that he saw, the butcher, that he's no joke. So the Roanoke crew, they wait until she's asleep one night, and they come in and they put her in this iron mask.
Her own son, too, is with them.
Yeah, Wes Bentley. We see his character here finally really getting some airtime. We saw him a couple other times for a brief instant, but we didn't really hear much out of him until now. But we find out that it's actually the butcher's son is Wes Bentley. And he's with these guys, but it's kind of like either I conform or I'm going to get locked in one of these things and tossed out into the wilderness myself. Mm-hmm. So we learned that Kathy's character is about to be wearing this thing permanently and be cast out of the colony to pretty much fend for herself. No food, no water. Then we
It's
know
like
that a
a
woman.
cage. It's like a tiny Iron Maiden. It's like an inverted Iron Maiden. Spikes are facing out. There's no way to really drink to get your hands up. You can't drink water with it. You could probably, I don't know, eat some twigs, but you can't hunt in that thing. They also have her arms and her legs shackled. So she can't move at this point. She's completely helpless against these guys.
So the leader of the mutineers has the lock for this iron mask in his hand, and he hands it to Wes Bentley, and he's like, "Okay, either you're with us, or we can put you in one of these things too." So he has no choice because he's got a hatchet to his throat. He has no choice but to really comply or just die right there on the spot. And of course, he doesn't want to die.
Cleaver. I think the meat cleaver is very important to know. Like throughout this whole thing, you keep seeing this cleaver. It's building. So he has the same meat cleaver up to Wes Bentley's throat. Say it's us or her. It's us or your mom.
Maybe it's a possessed kind of item. You know, kind of like what they say about electric chairs being haunted items because of so many people dying in them. But maybe because it's been used to kill so many people, maybe that's why it's like a mystified evil item.
The actual item that is holding her to that property. Because like I said, when you're a ghost, there is usually something holding you to a location. So maybe that's it. Maybe they got to find the butcher, the cleaver, rather, and get rid of it. Who knows?
Well, Cricket's actually telling this origin story to Lee because she thinks she's got this whole understanding of how the Roanoke County Croatoan thing came into play. But she doesn't. We all don't. And that's where Cricket kind of dives into it a little bit more, telling us about Kathy Bates' origin story and the group that abandoned her out there. So she's in the woods by herself in this iron mask. She's bound by her hands and feet, too. She can maybe move out that far. It's kind of like she's in handcuffs and shackles. But there's no way she's going to survive. So she hears something give chase after her. It sounds like a big boar almost. It definitely sounds pig-like. And just when she loses her footing and she ducks down and she thinks she's about to get gored to death, nothing. She stands up, looks around. It's nothing there. And then, of course, like any great American horror story moment, it'll come racing at her, only for something to happen. And this is where we see Lady Gaga finally come into play again. Dressed like this crazy witch doctor-ish looking chick. But the one thing that I find really interesting about Gaga's character thus far is if you've listened, when you do hear her character, even though it's very, very minimal chatter, she almost sounds like she doesn't sound human. It's almost like this kind of trail to her voice.
Very like an ethereal. And her lips don't move when she speaks. I think maybe she's speaking telepathically.
That could be. She definitely doesn't seem like she's normal. She stops that giant hog from goring Kathy Bates and basically cuts its heart out. She cuts the heart out of the thing, and it's still beating in her hand. And she actually offers it to Kathy Bates and to just eat this.
I think that's more like because you can hear her almost whisper in her or telepathically say, more or less, join me, serve me. I can't remember exactly what she says, but she's offering her. She's like, I will save you if you serve me and you come with me. I will give you power and you'll be okay. This is your way out. So she eats the heart. Delicious.
And then we see her come in and around a table of her mutineers bury that crazy hatchet right in Mr. Lead Mutineer's head. And after, a couple of gallons come pouring out of him, he goes keeling over. And you got to admit, she definitely is a lot darker, more demonic-like now. So it's almost like that heart that she ate turned her even more evil, or fueled her.
Well, she's angry because they turned against her. It was her husband that left, and she was in charge. And just because they couldn't find food, they rose against her, and they let her, they sent her off to die. She's definitely darker, but she has her reasons, and I'm pulling for a dark Kathy Bates at this point because they deserved it.
She really did play a pretty nice villain role in Coven as Delphine LaLaurie. She was pretty violent, vicious chick.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad she's back doing it. She played that role really well.
Yeah, she's a great villain. Then you see her, where of course Wes Bentley, her son, is there, and he's pretty much saying, well, I'm next. She's coming at me with the cleaver. So he gets on his knees begging for forgiveness. And she told him, you had better be glad that you were my flesh and blood, or you would end up just like them. And she spares him. And she throws the butcher's knife down onto the table, just like she threw it into the door of the house, and it stuck, and end scene there. Great scene. We finally get introduced to what we think may be our main villain. Kathy Bates' character, the butcher, get introduced to her. It's great.
She did appear to be the leader of that group that roasted what appeared to be a very, very stressed out and trying to get the hell out of there for his own life, Dennis O'Hare, that got burned at the stake wearing the pig mask and the pigtail nailed to his ass. I can't be sure that was him, but I thought it was, though. But
I thought it was too, but I hope he's not dead already, because I really like him as an actor, and I hope we see more of his character.
I'm pretty sure he's a past tense at this point, because we did see him go back into the house in the second episode in that video, and that spirit grabbed him. But then again, we don't see any more of him after that point, because that's pretty much the last video entry. But
maybe he'll pop up as a different character.
Could be.
Completely.
So now we're back in the woods. We got Cricket in tow. Shelby and Matt, they actually come with this time, obviously. They want to go with Lee, especially after dumping 25 grand on what Matt thinks is just a grifter psycho. And Cricket is communicating with Kathy Bates and her group, trying to get her to bring Priscilla out so that they can get Flora, because Cricket has told Lee, Flora is alive. Priscilla has her, though, but she refuses to let her go. And he tells Priscilla, the dead they should not have friends that are alive. The dead and the living don't have relationships. So, of course, they're out in the woods, and like we always expect out of every time we see them go into the woods, we know something's going to happen. Matt somehow gets separated from the group. He's not with them.
Where's Matt?
Yeah, where's Matt?
Oh, great. I didn't even realize he was with them, and before I knew he was with them, he was gone.
Mm-hmm. Like, they drew their attention to Cricket while he was talking to the butcher, and then they turned around and he was just gone. So, of course, Shelby's going to go looking for her husband, and this is where we see some really weird shit. It kind of took me back to season 1 a little bit, but it also took me to an episode of True Blood. Well, we'll go back to that in a minute. But we actually see the two hillbilly yokels beating their meat, watching somebody, and it just happens to be Matt tagging Lady Gaga's character from behind. After watching Hotel, I can definitely say that I think Gaga's favorite position is doggy style.
Poor Matt, he just looks like an incoherent deer caught in the headlights. You can definitely tell that he is out of it. Shelby doesn't care because she just caught her husband cheating on her with a woods hobo. So she just runs away. But there is definitely something wrong in Matt's eyes.
Notice how his glasses were even fogged? Like, that must have been a pretty steamy moment. Cuba must have been getting into it. His glasses were even fogged up.
Yeah, he was working there. He was definitely working hard.
So Shelby runs home. She cannot believe what she just saw. Her husband was banging another chick right in front of her with the hillbillies that they've been so scared of beating off. And he comes up like nothing even happened, and she basically shoves him off like, you asshole. I literally just saw you cheating on me in the woods with this creepy deer antler lady. Gaga, of course. And he can't remember any of it. He's wondering what the hell is going on. He gets to the house, the cops are there, she's screaming at him.
And if
And
I were Shelby at this point, I would at least, think, well, all this weird stuff's been going on, and with the niece missing and them like hating the hillbillies, not liking them, even if he were to go off and cheat on Shelby, why at that moment, and why out in the woods, and why would he let those weird bumpkins watch?
seriously.
She did not.
Well,
It's like she couldn't think that. I mean, I guess being in a very rageful moment, it maybe just didn't make sense to her. But I think I would have questioned it a little bit, just a little bit.
yeah. Well, remember, they were out there to try and see if that they could work together with the butcher so that they could leave and get the hell out of Dodge. They were basically trying to get her to draw out Priscilla because of how powerful she is with the colony behind her, and try and see if Priscilla would let Flora go. And Lee's like, yeah, we will leave. We will never come back. You can have your territory. We will just go.
We'll tell other people not to come here. We'll burn the house down.
And that really pissed Shelby off because apparently Lee had cleared that already with Matt to go ahead and just burn this house down. And Shelby's like, well, what the hell? I've never heard anything about this.
They didn't tell her that. So initially, whenever Matt got back to Shelby at the house, he thought that's what she was mad at. Well, she was mad at that, but that wasn't the only thing she was mad at. And he had no recollection of being with Lady Gaga in the woods. So the next thing we see, the cops show up, they're already there, but they have Lee in cuffs, shoving her into the back of a cop car. And he's like, what is going on? What is happening, Lee? And she's like, she doesn't know either. So they're yelling. And he looks back at Shelby. He says, what's going on? She says, I don't know. She's crying. She's got this look on her face. That was the end of the episode.
Yep. So now we see some serious turmoil going on. Now Lee is gone because basically Shelby blew the whistle on, the possibility of her killing her husband and kidnapping her own daughter. So the cops got her under serious suspicion, which means she's out of the picture for now. And now Matt and her
wanting to burn down her house. It's got her on that, like a possible arson type thing.
Now, what's going to happen if Lee's out of the picture? Then what exactly is Cricket going to do now, though? That's what I'm curious. I mean, if he doesn't have his employer there, then what really does he need to do? Unless he is a genuine good guy and he actually still does go and try and fulfill his end of the contract, because after all, he did get paid.
Yeah, he's already gotten paid, so he should. I don't know what's going to happen with Lee, but I don't think Cricket's going to go anywhere. We just met him, like you said, think like a director, so he's not going anywhere. Maybe he'll continue to try to talk to the butchers. Maybe the butcher will, and Lady Gaga and their company will actually make themselves be known to Matt, possibly even the police. Because for Lee to prove her innocence, if she is innocent, she was gone for 4 hours. But for them to believe that it wasn't her, if it wasn't her, someone else is going to have to know about the butcher. What if Lee actually did kill Mason? What if she was afraid that he was going to go rat to the cops? That she had pretty much kidnapped their daughter. That he thinks that she kidnapped their daughter. But the thing is, I don't think that Lee would ritually sacrifice this guy. When you look at that burned body and you think this isn't a murder, it was ritualistically done the same way the other murders had been done with everybody else we've seen, with the pig man, with the dolls and the pigs laying on the ground. It doesn't seem like she would do something like that. But what if she's not herself? What if maybe she's possessed?
Could be that dark heart scene with the witch doctor looking Lady Gaga might have done it right there. Because seriously, we noticed like a darkness in her.
Mm-hmm. She can definitely possess and take over people's minds. She did it to Matt. Why couldn't she have done it to Lee so Lee would kill Mason?
Could be demonic possession. We saw it in season 2, which was my personal favorite, but we'll recap those at a later time, because believe me, when we start recapping Asylum, I'll be getting all kinds of excited. But again, American Horror Story Season 3. We still have not found Flora. We did get introduced to some new characters. We actually got some backstory on the Roanoke colony and a little more education, and found out that even after Kathy Bates came back, they ended up actually moving inland, which would explain why this haunting is happening on this property. So we're getting more and more. If our other American Horror Story fanatics out there have been reading chat forums, we have been eagerly trying to find out more about a so-called mystery season that Ryan Murphy has had very, very hush-hush lately. Apparently only he and one writer really know about it, but he decided to kind of just say, hey, guess what? I am actually making a mystery season. I'm not quite sure why. It is in reference to Season 7, so no, this is not an old post in regards to, because we saw Season 6 had, 24 of these little mystery trailers, and supposedly only one of them was correct.
I heard about that too. I haven't read anything about the mystery season. I heard about how for Season 6, he's saying that you don't realize, but what you're watching isn't really what you're watching, and that it's like episodes 1, 2, and 3 are a thing, and then 4, 5, and 6 are a thing, and then 7, 8, 9 are a thing, and then 10 is like completely different. So the format of the season is going to be very crazy. We don't know what's going to happen. Something huge is going to happen. Episode 5 or 6, it's just going to take a huge turn. Have no idea what it is.
It's got to. I mean, we still haven't really seen Evan Peters yet. This is what's driving me crazy, because he's one of the stars. He's one of my favorite stars, if not my favorite, of the series. I mean, he's always been a character that I found extremely interesting, whether he have played the extreme psycho, or he has been just the hero, or he can play both spectrums really, really well. But my personal favorite thus far has got to be James Patrick Marsh from Hotel last season. That character was sinister. And I believe they actually
for American Horror Story, so he's going to show up. They're just holding the Evan Peters suspense, making everyone squirm, like what's his character going to be, really drawing you in. So they better make it good, whatever it is, for making it wait.
There's still a few more regular American Horror Story faces that we've yet to see, too, because we did actually see in the beginning, they released the official cast, where we could see previous actors or actresses are going to be playing a role in this season, even though we didn't know what character they were portraying and how long they were even going to be on the screen.
Cheyenne Jackson, that's that guy's name, who was generic guy number 4 in Hotel.
Was he the one that got butt raped by the drug addiction monster in the first episode?
He was the hotel owner. I think he was Will. He was Will.
Yes.
But I always got him and the other guy confused every time. You kept having to set me straight. No, it's this guy. No, that's this guy. I was like, I don't know. It was very confusing. But supposedly Cheyenne Jackson, I think, is Will from season 5 from Hotel, is the camera operator and director for the reality part, the reality show part, where they're filming Lee and Shelby and Matt.
Ah, okay,
Fans
that was
said
him.
That they recognized his voice.
Okay. So it definitely was not Evan Peters' voice that was back there doing that camera stuff.
Oh, there's nothing definite at this point. There's just more fan speculation. But he did release an Instagram photo with his, little director's chairs you sit in, little makeup chairs. They have your name embroidered.
Right.
An Instagram photo with his chair. Says Cheyenne Jackson next to Kathy Bates' chair. So they were filming scenes together. So more than likely, I don't know if they're going to be in a scene together, but they're probably going to be in episodes together. Whatever that means, I don't know.
Well, let's close it off with one more thing that we do not want to forget, that Ryan Murphy promised us, that this is the season that's really going to tie all of the seasons together. And the only thing that I can come close to thinking of doing that is how it's like a location. It's always like a place or a house that seems to draw this immense amount of power. But we've also heard that Danny Mott, the psycho from American Horror Story Freak Show, is going to get a little backstory as well. But it's going to be a little bit interesting.
Cricket mentioned that he's from New Orleans, where Coven was set, season 3. That was interesting
references.
as well. lot
A
of
lot of cool
references.
references.
We're going to have to make one of those picture string trees to try to figure out all the connections.
That's going to have to cover my entire wall back here. I'm going to have to make room for Freddy Krueger elsewhere. Well, all right, American Horror Story fans. This is the Elvis Man. With me, as always, is my lovely future wife, Miss Melody Patton. We are representing Monkey Caviar and The Creep on American Horror Story, recapping My Roanoke Nightmare. We had some technical difficulties, so our apologies for starting about 15, 17 minutes later than usual tonight. But thankfully, Comporia might have their asses in gear next week, so we won't have problems again. But we will see you at 9 p.m. next Thursday for episode 4 of American Horror Story, My Roanoke Nightmare.